Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Adele Ashley and I am so excited to tell you guys all about the books that I'm looking forward to reading in spring of 2024. There's a couple really good new releases coming out as well as debut authors, some things from some of my favorite authors, and I'm just really excited to dive into them. So as always, I do have my phone here because, I am not going to remember all these synopses, or I will tell you something and be completely wrong about what the book is. So I will be kind of reading the synopses off of here, and then giving you guys some of my thoughts on these books as well. Spring is one of those seasons where I always know that I'm going to get like a light and airy kind of story. We're easing into the summer season and beach reads, so a couple of these are really good and I'm really looking forward to reading them. First up, we have The Rule Book by Sarah Adams, which is coming out on April 2nd, and it's about two college exes who break all the rules when they reunite years later in a enemies to lovers second chance romance. And it is being listed as a companion novel to The Cheat Sheet, which I did read years ago. I don't remember like a lot about it. I do know it's about an NFL football player and his best friend who is like a dance teacher, or she's a ballerina, and they end up like, I think they enter into a fake dating, or they realize that they really love each other. It's a romance novel, but this is listed as a companion, so I think we are going to start seeing them a little bit in the book as well, but it can definitely also be read as a standalone. And it follows Nora Mackenzie, whose entire career lies in the hands of famous NFL tight end Derek Pender, who also happens to be her extremely hot college ex-boyfriend. Nora didn't end things as gracefully as she could have back then, and now it has come back to haunt her. And Derek is her first client as an official full-time sports agent, and he's holding a bit of a grudge. So Derek has his sights set on a little friendly revenge. If Nora Mackenzie, the first girl to ever break his heart, wants to be his agent, he will let her be his agent. The plan is simply to make Nora's life absolutely miserable. So Derek knows anything about the woman he once loved. She won't quit easily, and he is definitely like hinging his bets on that. But, instead of giving in, Nora starts a scheme of her own. But then a wild night in Vegas leads to Nora and Derek in bed the next morning, married. With their rule book out the window, could this relationship save their careers or spark the romance of a lifetime? This just seems as if it has like so many tropes thrown into it. You have like the unexpected marriage. What happens in Vegas is definitely not staying in Vegas in this case. I'm really intrigued to see kind of how this relationship is saving their careers. Because it's not necessarily just hers, it's his as well. I'm expecting to see some fun elements of them kind of like fighting with each other, or like maybe pranks or something as he makes her life hell as she tries to be his agent at the start. It just looks like a really nice, fun weekend read that I'm sure I'm going to enjoy diving into. I also have Here We Go Again by Alison Cochrun, which is also coming out on April 2nd. And Alison Cochrun wrote Kiss Her Once for Me, as well as The Charm Offensive, two books which I absolutely loved. The Charm Offensive was easily one of my favorite books that I've read. I do kind of go back to it every once in a while for a little bit of a reread. I just love those characters. And Kiss Her Once for Me I read over the holiday season, and it is like a top tier holiday romance in the best way possible. So I'm really excited for Here We Go Again. And it's about two childhood best friends who are forced together to drive their former teacher across the country. So we have Logan and Rosemary, who used to be friends and would spend all their childhood summers together, kind of going on adventures and doing a whole bunch of things. However, they dreamed of escaping, but then an incident the summer before high school turns them into bitter rivals. And after graduation, they went 10 years without ever speaking to each other. Now they're in their 30s, and Logan and Rosemary find that they're not quite living the lives that they dreamed of living when they were children. So there's no adventure. They're still in their very small town, and both of them are working as teachers at their alma mater. They try to avoid each other as much as possible, but they keep kind of like crashing into each other. At one point, they literally crash their cars into each other. And they just kind of are like trying to avoid each other, but it's just not working. And then their beloved former English teacher lets them know that he only has a couple of months left to live. So they're forced together once and for all to fulfill his last wish, which is a cross-country road trip. So they all stuff into a van, and they embark on a life-changing summer trip from Washington State to the Grand Canyon, from the Gulf Coast to coastal Maine, that will chart a new future and perhaps lead them back to one another. So, like I said, I love Alison Cochrun's books. I think that they're so charming and they're so beautiful, and a big point here is the characters are like so mature in the sense that like you will not have a miscommunication happen in her books because they will communicate to each other. They are adults, they approach things. There's no like silly little third act breakup. It's usually for something real if they are breaking up. So I am so excited to dive into this in April and kind of see where we go again with an Alison Cochrun novel. Next on my list is a debut novel by Myah Ariel, and it's called When I Think of You, out on April 16th. So it's a second chance romance again about an unexpected spark between two former flames, which may force them to choose between their dreams and each other. It follows Kalia Wilson, who has paid her dues, but all the years behind the reception desk at a flashy film studio has only pushed her own movie-making dreams out of the way and further out of reach. That is until a surprise reunion presents an opportunity that can make her career or break her heart a second time. So it's been 7 years since Kalia's whirlwind college romance with Danny Prescott went up in flames, and while her passions have stalled, his career is like on a rocket ship and just taking off. So when he reappears to offer her a job on his next production, it's a shock to her system. Working with Danny may recapture the intensity of their film school days, but trusting him again won't come as easily. And as the pair allows themselves to open up and vulnerability to entrust their deepest secrets to each other, the possibility of a true connection draws even closer. But when Hollywood politics and scandal threaten to sink the production and her career, Kalia may have to risk everything to do what's right, even if it means letting go of the second chance love of a lifetime. So I'm kind of intrigued by where this goes. I love reading debut novels because they're always, I just love giving new authors chances. Because, I could always find a new favorite author when I read a debut romance or debut novel in general. And this just seems really fun. It is kind of giving me funny you should ask vibes, like that Hollywood normal person relationship. I'm really intrigued to see kind of how, what the scandal is and why she has to choose between her dreams and him. My hope is that they find a way at the end in this happily ever after for her to still get her dreams. Because a pet peeve of mine is when relationships in a book, when they do not manage to have a relationship at the end, or someone sacrifices everything that they want, and then we're supposed to believe that they just go happily ever after forevermore, and there's no resentment from that party, and usually it's the woman who's sacrificing her entire career, everything she ever hoped and dreamed of for love, which is, it breeds resentment for some people. So I hope she doesn't give it up. It's basically all I'm trying to say. But it does seem like it's going to be a fun book, and like I said, I love anything that kind of breaks the fourth wall of Hollywood or celebrity, and normal person romance is kind of something that I enjoy reading. So Christa Comes Out of Her Shell by Abbi Waxman comes out on April 16th, and it's about Christa Little, an antisocial scientist who receives a life-changing phone call which throws her back into her least favorite place in the world, the spotlight. And, she had the tumultuous childhood. She's happy studying sea snails in the middle of the Indian Ocean. She just, kind of knows this is where I am and this is what I'm doing and I'm happy with my snails. And then all of a sudden she receives a phone call letting her know that her once famous father, who was long thought dead after a plane crash, is actually alive and well and ready to make amends with her. So, of course, the world goes wild because everyone thought this man was dead. They're fascinated by this real life saga, and Christa and her family is placed underneath the spotlight as they try to figure out what's going on. In the middle of this, she also reunites with her childhood friend and discovers that there's like an intense physical attraction that she was not expecting, but both of them want to act on. And then as her father's story starts to develop cracks, Christa fears she will lose herself, her potential relationship, and most importantly, any chance of making it back to her snails before they forget her completely. This just seems fun as well. I am intrigued about the whole idea of this man just like dropping off the face of the earth in a plane crash and like coming back years later still alive. Like, that's the type of thing that if that were to happen now, like, I would be hooked to the news trying to figure out like what happened to this man and where is he, and like, figuring out holes in the story. I love how Christa is like, I want no part of this. I do know that Abbi Waxman is the author of The Bookish Life of Nina Hill, which I've heard really great things about. I've never read the book, but I do believe it's on my TBR list. So, I might actually dive into Christa Comes Out of Her Shell before I get to The Bookish Life. But either way, this seems like a really fun, like kind of like hilarious read that I would, love. Also, I want to know more about sea snails. Like, I hope there's a lot of information about sea snails and how they operate, because I truly don't know anything about snails other than they clean your fish tank, I think. I don't know. I also have Funny Story by Emily Henry coming out on April 23rd. Full disclosure, I have never read an Emily Henry book, which I know seems so weird as someone who loves talking about books to say that they've never read her books, because I feel like everyone has. But it really is just that like I buy her books when they come out with every intention of reading it, and then for some reason I never actually like dive into the book. So I do fully have a pile of her books in my apartment that I've just never read. So obviously I need to continue the book buying habit and get Funny Story, but I do think this might be the one that I end up reading, because it is about of like a pair of opposites, people who are very, very different from each other, who end up coming together. Essentially it's about Daphne, who has always loved the way her fiance Peter would tell their story of how like they met and their relationship. And she really liked it until he realized that he was actually in love with his best friend Petra. So she's living in his lakeside hometown. She's kind of like given up everything that she knows from back home and has been transplanted to this place, and he leaves her for Petra. So she has no friends or family, but a dream job as a children's librarian that barely pays any of her bills. And she proposes to be roommates with the only person who could possibly understand her predicament, Petra's ex, Miles. So Miles is scruffy and chaotic. He is exactly the opposite of our practical buttoned-up Daphne, whose coworkers know so little about her that they have a running bet that she's either the FBI or in witness protection. The roommates mainly avoid each other until one day they form a tenuous friendship and a plan, and that plan involves posting deliberately misleading photos of their summer adventures together. And then it's kind of like, is it all for show? Of course, because there's no way Daphne could actually be starting her new chapter by falling in love with her ex-fiance's new fiance's ex. And just kind of like, what happens? Do they, don't they? This is a romance novel, so I do know that most likely she's going to end up dating Miles. They may have a happily ever after. It's a fake dating trope. Like, we know how this ends. But I do think it's kind of like an interesting concept of her kind of moving in with him and finding out a whole bunch of different things and where do we go from here, and also trying to, like, I personally don't know if I would want to, if I was engaged to someone and they ended up going with their best friend, then I guess that best friend had a fiance. I don't know if I'd move into that with that ex-fiance's place, but that's just me, boundaries. But it does seem fun, and everyone seems to love Emily Henry books, so, you know, maybe this is the one that I either add to my pile or it's the one that I'm going to read. We shall see. The Mother Act by Heidi Reiner comes out on April 30th, and it's set against the sparkling background of the theater world. It's also a debut novel and follows a complicated relationship between an actress who refuses to abandon her career and the daughter she chose to abandon instead. So it follows Sadie Jones, a larger-than-life actress and controversial feminist who never wanted to be a mother. No one feels this more deeply than Jude, the daughter Sadie left behind. And while Jude spent her childhood touring with her father's Shakespearean theater company, desperate for validation from the mother she barely knew, Sadie catapulted to fame on the wings of The Mother Act, a scathing one-woman show depicting her maternal rage. 2 decades later, Jude is a talented actress in her own right, and her fraught relationship with Sadie has come to a head bitterly and publicly. On a December evening in New York City, at the packed premiere of Sadie's latest play, the two come face to face, and the intertwined stories of their lives unravel. With years of love, resentment, and misunderstanding laid bare, the questions loom. What are the costs of being a devoted mother and a devoted artist, and who gets to decide if the collateral damage is justified? I do know that this is being written as like a play in 6 acts, so I am kind of interested in seeing how that is structured, if it reads like a play or if it reads a little bit more like a novel. I am also really intrigued by this. It's that whole kind of age-old question of, like, how do you have it all? How do you, as a woman, do you be a mother and also have a career? And in this case, it seems as if Sadie chose very clearly to have a career over being a mother to her daughter Jude, and then the resentment that Jude has towards not having a mother who was present because she was going after her career, and just kind of how do you do it all? So either way, I'm actually really excited to dive into this, and we'll be reading it shortly. Also coming out in the spring is This Summer Will Be Different by Carley Fortune, out on May 7th. So, you know, Carley Fortune writes these beautiful stories that are written in kind of like cottage country or like rural Canada. And I'm really excited to dive into this one. So This Summer Will Be Different. It starts off with, this summer they'll keep their promise. This summer they won't give in to temptation. This summer will be different. And it follows Lucy, who is a tourist vacationing at a beach house on Prince Edward Island. And Felix is a local who shows her a very good time. The only problem is Lucy doesn't know he's her best friend's younger brother. And Lucy's and Felix's chemistry is unreal, but the list of reasons why they need to stay away from each other is very long, and they vow to never repeat that electric night again, which is easier said than done. So every year, Lucy escapes to PEI for a big breath of coastal air, fresh oysters, and crisp vino verde with her best friend Bridget. And every visit begins with a long walk on the beach beneath soaring red cliffs and a golden sun. And every single visit, Lucy promises herself she won't end up in Felix's bed again. And, you know, Lucy can't help being drawn to Felix. At least she's always kept her heart out of it. Except when Bridget suddenly flees Toronto a week before her wedding, Lucy drops everything to follow her to the island. And her mission is to help Bridget through her crisis and resist the one man she's never been able to. But Felix's sparkling eyes and flirty quips have been replaced with something new, and Lucy's beginning to wonder just how safe her heart truly is. So this just seems so perfect, and it definitely seems like an escape, and I totally can understand kind of like that, you know, this is my brother's best friend, and I'm not going to date him, and how Lucy ends up still kind of having a relationship with him, and Bridget running and trying to figure out what's going on. I'm really excited. Honestly, the only book I think I've ever read set in Prince Edward Island was Anne of Green Gables when I was like maybe 8 or 9. I have no idea of what happens in PEI, but I'm excited to kind of see how Carley Fortune lays this all out for us and for the reader, because it does seem really fun. Very Bad Company by Emma Rosenblum comes out on May 14th, which is, I am absolutely excited for. I read her previous book, Bad Summer People, and genuinely, I love a story about rich white people behaving badly. And that's everything that Bad Summer People gave, and Very Bad Company seems to be following along in the same vein. It's about a team of wealthy and powerful executives on a retreat in Miami who randomly one of them goes missing, and they're trying to figure out like what happened. So there is always a bit of a mystery element in there as well. In her previous book there was a murder, and they're trying to figure out like who killed this woman and everyone's secrets, and in this one someone goes missing. So it follows executives at the trendy tech startup Aurora, who gather the company's top employees for an exclusive retreat in Miami. And this year, Caitlin Levy, Aurora's newest hire, is joining the team as head of events. The benefits are outstanding for her. She gets a 7-figure salary, there's stock shares, discretionary bonus, limitless vacation days. Like, what could possibly go wrong? However, when another high-level executive vanishes after the first night, the disappearance has the potential to derail the future of the company's sale and cost everyone on the team millions. Now more than ever, Caitlin and her colleagues must continue the charade, partaking in team-building exercises, group brainstorms, dinners, in order to keep the future of Aurora afloat and all the fatal speculations. I want to know what happens in this so badly, and I cannot wait for it to come out. Like, I tried to get an arc and I didn't get it, because this is, I just know that I'm going to be hooked on this book from start to finish. Bad Summer People was told in multiple viewpoints, like it's a multiple point of view novel, which I really enjoyed. I hope this is told from multiple point of views as well, because I think Emma Rosenblum does a really good job of describing and explaining everything that's happening in such a good way. So I am really excited for this. I'm also really excited for The Dixon Rule by Elle Kennedy, out on May 14th. So I have spoken about this quite a lot, how sports romances are kind of like my kryptonite, and I am such a fan of the Off-Campus and Briar U series. I have my favorites. I can talk about them for days. I love Jake Connolly and Gary Graham, but Jake is like top tier for me. And she has written kind of a third spin-off series called The Campus Diaries that follows kind of the younger generation. So book 1, The Graham Effect, follows Garrett Graham from book 1 in the campus, in Off-Campus. It follows his daughter, so we are dealing with kind of like, we're back into that college realm. And book 2 in the Campus Diary series is coming out on May 14th. It's called The Dixon Rule, and it is following one of Garrett Graham's children's, from book 1, her friend. So, you know, I was a little bit worried that we were just going to get like all the children that we're going to have of the characters in the book were going to have their own novel. It seems as if she is introducing a new set of friend group instead of following along with the Off-Campus and Briar U families. But I do hope that we still get a couple of them kind of like thrown in, because in The Graham Effect, I loved getting kind of catch-ups on what was going on with all these children who we met in the epilogue or in like the 5th book in the Off-Campus series. So The Dixon Rule follows Diana Dixon, who has a lot going on this summer. She's rehearsing for a ballroom dance competition, juggling 2 jobs, and dealing with an ex-boyfriend who can't take it the hint that it's over. Yet, despite all that, she still has plenty of time and energy to tell Shane Lindley to screw off. Shane, who's on the hockey team, has just moved into her apartment building and seems dedicated to sleeping his way through her entire cheerleading squad. Sure, he's a tall, gorgeous hockey player, but he's messing with her turf. This calls for some ground rules. No parties in her apartment, leaving her teammates alone, and most importantly, leave her alone. What Diana doesn't realize is that Shane's sick of hookups and tired of being on the rebound after his long-term girlfriend called it quits. And he really just wants a relationship. So when his ex comes back into the picture, he pretends he has a relationship to make her jealous. And who better to play the girlfriend role than his sassy new neighbor? Despite Diana's reluctance to break her rule, a fake relationship is the perfect solution to her own ex issues. And since she can't deny something is sizzling between her and Shane, soon something hot and completely unexpected happens, and it might just be getting a little bit too real. So I'm excited again to see where this goes. I have loved kind of like the series in general, and the previous books. I know I'm probably going to like the Dixon rule as well. It's kind of like a must read for me. I love the Graham effect as well. So I really just, it's a comfort read at this point for Elle Kennedy. I am excited to see how she keeps creating new stories in the same kind of like universe, because there's already 9 books that are set at Briar U. To write a 10th, 11th, 12th in the series is a feat in keeping the stories like new and refreshing all the time. So I will be definitely diving into that on May 14th when it comes out. I already have my pre-order in. And then another sports romance on my book is Play Along by Liz Tomforde, coming out on June 11th. So this is the 4th book in the Windy City series, and it follows Kennedy and Isaiah's story. So Kennedy is the only woman on staff for the Windy City Warriors, the baseball team. And after years of putting up with a sexist lead doctor, she's desperate to land her dream job with a new team next year. All she has to do is maintain her professional reputation for her final season in Chicago. But a Las Vegas run-in with the teammate shortstop Isaiah threatens it all, leaving her with a fuzzy memory and a ring on her left hand. Now, not only is she legally bound to the most persistent man she has ever met, but thanks to Isaiah's scheme to save her job, she has to pretend the whole thing was a planned elopement and not just a drunken mistake. So Isaiah is reckless, impulsive, and frustratingly charming, and he's also her brand new husband, and they got the saying wrong. What happened in Vegas doesn't always stay in Vegas. Sometimes it follows you right back home. So another book, set in starting off with a Vegas marriage. But I am actually so excited for this. I love the Windy City series. The 3rd book, Caught Up, is easily my favorite of the entire series. And Isaiah is kind of like, he's a nuisance through the entire book. Like, you knew this was coming. Final page, I knew that we were going to get Isaiah and Kennedy's story next. But I am excited to see what's going on. I do love the last line of the synopsis. It actually goes, so come on, wife, play along. Like, I know that line is probably going to come out of his mouth at some point in there, and I'm just excited to see where it goes exactly. One of my favorite authors, Katherine Center, also has a book coming out on June 11th called The Rom-Commers, and it's about Emma Wheeler, who desperately longs to be a screenwriter, and she spent her life studying, obsessing over, and writing romantic comedies, and she's also been this She has also been the sole caretaker of her kind-hearted dad who needs full-time care, and she's given the opportunity to rewrite a script for a famous screenwriter, Charles Yates. So he is like a big deal. It's too big for her to pass up. So Emma's younger sister steps in to take care of their father, and Emma moves to LA for 6 weeks for the writing gig of a lifetime. But she should not have met her hero. Charles Yates does not want to write with her. He actually does not want to write with anyone. And his romantic comedy is actually so horrible that it might actually bring on the apocalypse. So he doesn't care about the script at all. It's just a means for him to get another script that he's working on greenlit, and he seems to think that love is an emotional Ponzi scheme. So Emma's not going down without a fight. She will stand up for herself and for rom-coms and for love itself. And she will do whatever she needs to do to convince him that love stories exist, even if that means, kissing him and it turns out to be accidentally amazing. And what if real life turns out to be so much more real than fiction? And what if the love story that they're writing breaks Emma's rules and comes true? So I love a Katherine Center book personally. I have read so many of them. She writes characters that are so real and they have such real and heartfelt like struggles, and it's not glossed over. I think the romance in her books are always, even though these are romance novels, the romance is almost like a secondary thing that happens in those books because there's so much more. I think like there's How to Fly Away, and the character like is in a plane crash and she's in the hospital and she's recovering from that, and that is kind of the majority of the story and where a lot of the heart in the story is. And she ends up finding love along the way, but it really is about her resilience. She writes these women who are just so strong and so badass, and I am so excited to dive into the Rom-Commers. Full disclosure, by the time you guys are seeing this, I might have actually read the book. So if I have, I will make sure to link up my reading wrap up and my full thoughts on the books like in my roundup here for you guys, because I did receive an arc of this from Katherine and her publishing team. So I will probably be reading that very shortly before you guys see this. So like I said, I'll make sure to link everything up there for you guys. But that is one of the books that I'm probably the most excited to read this upcoming season. So those are the books that I am looking forward to reading in the spring of 2024. Please let me know any suggestions for like fantasy, historical fiction, or sci-fi books that are coming out or that I should read. And thrillers or mysteries. I am trying to get back into reading a little bit more diversely this year because I was reading a lot of romance novels for a while, and I just kind of want to get back to opening up my horizons and everything that I used to love reading, but I don't know where to start. So if you have any suggestions for books that are coming out that you think I should read, please leave the description down below for me, and I will be sure to add it to my TBR. If there are any books that you are excited in reading this spring, please let me know as well in the comments. Till next time, have a great day.